Have you ever looked at your daily routine? The healthy breakfast? The apple you trust, the habits you followed for years, and quietly wondered why your energy is fading instead of improving? Why your body feels heavier, slower, more drained than it used to? Because what I'm about to tell you might be uncomfortable to hear, but it's something I've seen far too many times. There is a seemingly harmless habit, one that millions of people repeat every single morning, that can silently place stress on your kidneys. Without pain, without warning, and without giving you a clear signal until the damage has already begun. My name is Dr. Lucas Grant, and I need you to stay with me for a moment, because this isn't about fear, it's about awareness. I've sat across from patients who believed they were doing everything right, only to find themselves facing a reality they never expected, where their kidneys could no longer keep up and their lives changed in ways they couldn't reverse. But here's the part that matters most. This isn't inevitable, and it's not something you're powerless against. Once you understand what's really happening inside your body and the simple mistake hidden in a routine that feels completely normal, you can begin to protect your kidneys before that silent strain turns into something far more serious. And to truly understand how something so small can carry such a heavy cost, we need to take a closer look at what actually happens inside your body. Starting with the habit that seems the most innocent of all. It often starts with something that feels completely right, something simple, clean, even recommended. An apple in the morning, followed by a glass of cold milk. It sounds balanced, refreshing, almost like you're doing your body a favor before the day even begins. And that's exactly why this habit is so dangerous, because it hides behind the illusion of being healthy. I once worked with a patient, let's call him James, 66 years old. He was disciplined, consistent, the kind of person who genuinely cared about his health. Every morning without fail, he would eat one apple and immediately follow it with a glass of cold milk straight from the fridge. To him, it felt perfect. He even told me, "I feel lighter after, almost like my body is flushing everything out." And that right there is where the misunderstanding begins. Because what feels like cleansing is often something very different. After a full night of rest, your digestive system enters the day in a stable, balanced state. Your stomach is warm, your enzymes are regulated, your body is ready to restart gently. When you introduce an apple, naturally hydrating, slightly acidic, rich in fiber, that's generally a good start. But the moment you follow it with cold milk, especially at a low temperature, you create a sudden internal shift that your body has to react to immediately. Think of it like pouring cold water into a warm engine. It doesn't stop working, but it has to adjust fast. That adjustment triggers what we call a mild gastrointestinal reflex. The stomach contracts more aggressively, trying to stabilize its internal environment. As a result, intestinal movement speeds up. In many people, especially adults over 60, this leads to subtle symptoms, looser stools, quicker digestion, a feeling of emptiness shortly after eating. And here's the part most people get wrong. They interpret that feeling as something positive. They think, my body is detoxing. But physiologically, that's not detoxification. That's loss. Loss of fluids, loss of electrolytes, loss of balance. And here's where it becomes more than just a digestive issue, it becomes a kidney issue. Your kidneys depend heavily on one thing to function properly: stable hydration. They filter your blood, remove waste, and regulate essential minerals. But when your body starts losing fluid, even in small amounts, your blood becomes more concentrated. Studies have shown that even mild dehydration can increase blood viscosity and reduce renal perfusion, which is the flow of blood through the kidneys. When that flow decreases, the tiny filtration units inside your kidneys, called nephrons, are forced to work under more stress. Not enough to cause pain, not enough to trigger an alarm, but enough to create micro damage over time. And this is where age plays a critical role. After the age of 60, kidney function naturally declines by about 1% each year. That means your margin for error is already smaller than it used to be. What your body could easily tolerate at 30 becomes something it has to compensate for at 65. So when a habit like this is repeated every single morning, the effect doesn't show up immediately. It builds, quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. James didn't feel sick. He didn't feel pain. But over a few months, he started noticing subtle changes. A bit more fatigue than usual, occasional lightheadedness, digestive discomfort he couldn't quite explain. Nothing dramatic, just enough to ignore, until his lab results came back. His kidney markers had started to shift. Not drastically, but enough to raise concern. And when we traced back his routine, this healthy habit stood out as a consistent daily stressor. So we didn't remove the apple, we didn't eliminate milk, we simply changed the timing. We allowed a gap of about 60 to 90 minutes between the two. We warmed the milk slightly instead of drinking it cold, and within weeks his digestive symptoms stabilized. Within months his kidney function stopped declining. That's the key takeaway here. It's not about fear and it's not about restriction. It's about understanding how your body actually responds to combinations, not just individual foods. Because your body doesn't judge based on intention, it responds to physiology. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever had that light feeling after eating and assumed it meant your body was cleaning itself out? Have you ever trusted the sensation without questioning what was actually happening underneath? Because sometimes what feels like relief in the moment is actually strain in disguise. And if a simple combination like this can quietly disrupt your body's balance day after day, then what happens when that imbalance isn't just about temperature or digestion, but about something that actively pulls water out of your system without you even realizing it? But knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next habit feels even smoother, even more modern, and it may be putting your body into a state of silent dehydration, far more dangerous than this one. But if the first habit quietly disrupts your body through imbalance, the next one is even more deceptive because it feels smooth, controlled, and almost sophisticated. An apple, followed by a cup of coffee. For millions of people, this isn't just a routine, it's a ritual. Clean, minimal, efficient. Something you'd expect to see in a wellness blog or a perfect morning routine video. It feels intentional, disciplined, healthy, and that's exactly why it slips under the radar. I remember a patient, Emily, 63 years old. She lived a life most people would admire. No processed food, no late nights, no bad habits. Every morning she would sit by her window, eat an apple slowly, and sip her black coffee. It was her quiet moment, her reset, her way of starting the day right. And for a long time, nothing seemed wrong. But then something subtle began to change. Not pain, not illness. Just a kind of fatigue that didn't make sense. A deeper tiredness that lingered even after rest. Her skin became drier. Occasionally she felt slightly dizzy when standing up too quickly. Small things, easy to ignore, easy to explain away, until her lab results told a different story. Her kidney function had declined more than expected for her age. Not severely, but enough to raise a red flag. And when we looked closer, there wasn't one major problem. There was just one quiet, repeated pattern every single morning. This one. To understand why you have to look beneath the surface of what these two foods actually do inside your body. Apples by nature are hydrating, but they also support mild diuresis. They help your body regulate fluid and release excess sodium. On their own, that's beneficial. It keeps things balanced. But coffee operates very differently. Caffeine is a known diuretic. It stimulates your kidneys to produce more urine, increasing the rate at which your body loses fluid. And here's the critical detail. This effect is significantly stronger when coffee is consumed on an empty stomach, especially in the morning when your body's already slightly dehydrated after hours of sleep. Now combine the two. You eat an apple, your body begins adjusting fluid levels. Then you introduce caffeine, your system accelerates fluid loss. What you've just created isn't hydration, it's a compounded effect, a double diuretic state. And the most dangerous part, you don't feel it happening. You don't feel your body losing water in real time. You don't immediately feel thirsty. In fact, you might even feel energized, focused, more awake than usual. But beneath that surface, something else is unfolding. Studies have shown that caffeine can increase urine output significantly, particularly in individuals who consume it in the morning without adequate water intake. At the same time, research on hydration balance indicates that even mild fluid loss, just 1 to 2% of body weight, can begin to impair circulation and reduce oxygen delivery at the cellular level. That includes your kidneys. As fluid levels drop, your blood becomes more concentrated, thicker, slower, less efficient. Imagine the difference between water flowing freely through a filter versus a heavier, more viscous liquid struggling to pass through. Your kidneys are that filter. And when blood flow becomes less optimal, the tiny capillaries inside your kidneys experience increased resistance. Oxygen delivery decreases, waste removal becomes less efficient. Over time, this creates a low-grade chronic stress environment, one that doesn't cause immediate symptoms, but quietly wears down function. And here's where perception becomes the problem. Many people believe that drinking coffee counts as hydration. After all, it's liquid. It must be helping, right? But physiologically, coffee doesn't replace the fluid it removes, especially when consumed in this pattern. In fact, when paired with a food that already influences fluid balance like an apple, the net effect can lean toward dehydration rather than hydration. Emily once told me something that stuck with me. She said I didn't feel sick, so I thought I was fine. And that's the danger of this habit. It doesn't feel wrong. It feels productive. It feels like you're doing something good for yourself. But your body doesn't respond to how something feels. It responds to what's actually happening internally. So what's the solution? Not elimination, not restriction, just awareness and timing. If you enjoy apples in the morning, give your body time to process them before introducing caffeine. Allow at least 60 to 90 minutes between the two. And if coffee is part of your routine, which for many people it is, make it a rule to follow it with real hydration, not a sip, not a token amount, but a full glass or two of water to restore balance. Think of coffee as creating a small fluid debt in your body. Water is how you repay it. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever gone through your entire morning relying only on coffee, assuming it was enough? Have you ever felt that mid-morning dip in energy and blamed it on age, stress, or sleep, without considering that your body might simply be running low on fluid? Because the truth is your kidneys don't demand attention. They don't send loud warnings, but they keep track of patterns of habits of repeated stress. And if this habit is quietly draining your body day after day, then what happens when the next one doesn't just affect hydration, but directly increases pressure inside your blood vessels, putting your kidneys under immediate strain? But knowing this alone still isn't enough, because there is another habit far more common, far more overlooked, that may have the biggest impact of all. And if the previous habit slowly drains your body without you noticing, this next one doesn't wait. It creates pressure almost immediately right after you eat. I'm talking about something so common, so routine, that most people would never question it. Finishing a slightly salty meal and then reaching for an apple as a clean ending. It feels refreshing. It feels balanced. It feels like you're correcting something. But inside your body, that combination doesn't balance anything. It amplifies stress. I remember a patient, Robert, 67 years old. He lived a simple life, nothing extreme. His meals were traditional, a bit on the salty side, but not excessive. And every single time he finished eating, he would peel an apple and eat it slowly. To him, it was a healthy habit, a way to wash down the meal. For years, nothing seemed wrong. Until one afternoon, after a slightly heavier lunch, saltier than usual, he followed the same routine. Apple right after. Within minutes, he felt something shift, a wave of dizziness. His heart started racing. His head felt heavy. When he was admitted, his blood pressure had spiked significantly, and his kidneys were under acute stress. He looked at me and said something I've heard too many times. I thought I was balancing my body. But the body doesn't work like that. Here's what actually happens. When you eat a salty meal, sodium levels in your bloodstream rise quickly. Sodium has a very specific effect. It pulls water into your blood vessels. That increases your blood volume. More volume means more pressure. Think of it like increasing the amount of water flowing through a fixed system of pipes. In a younger body, those vessels can expand and adapt. But as we age, those vessels become less flexible, and the kidneys, already working harder over time, have less capacity to buffer sudden changes. Now, right after that, you introduce an apple. Apples contain fructose, a natural sugar. On its own, in moderate amounts, it's not harmful. But timing changes everything. When fructose enters your system immediately after a high sodium load, it triggers a rapid metabolic response in the liver. One of the byproducts of this process is an increase in uric acid. And this is where things escalate. Multiple studies have shown that elevated uric acid levels are associated with increased risk of hypertension and kidney dysfunction. At the same time, the combination of high sodium and rapid sugar absorption can impair endothelial function, the inner lining of your blood vessels that helps regulate pressure and flow. So now two forces are happening at once. Sodium is increasing blood volume and pressure. Fructose is increasing metabolic stress and inflammatory signaling. The result? A sudden surge of vascular pressure right where your kidneys are most vulnerable. And your kidneys are not designed to handle repeated spikes like this. Inside each kidney are millions of tiny filtration units, nephrons. These structures are incredibly sensitive to pressure changes. When exposed to repeated stress, they begin to weaken. Scar tissue can form, efficiency declines, and over time, this contributes to a gradual loss of kidney function. The most dangerous part is, you don't feel it. There's no sharp pain, no immediate warning, maybe just a slight heaviness, a brief moment of discomfort that passes quickly. And because it passes, you assume everything is fine. But the body remembers what the mind ignores. Robert didn't develop his condition overnight. It was the result of a pattern repeated thousands of times, each time adding a small layer of stress that his body could no longer fully recover from. So what's the solution? Not eliminating apples, not fearing food, just respecting timing. If you've had a salty meal, give your body space. Allow at least 60 to 90 minutes before introducing fruit, especially those containing natural sugars like fructose. During that time, focus on gentle hydration, small amounts of water. Let your system stabilize before adding another metabolic demand. Because your body isn't something you need to constantly fix in the moment. It's something that needs rhythm, timing, and recovery. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever finished a heavy meal and reached for fruit believing you were doing something good? Have you ever trusted that refreshing feeling without questioning what might be happening underneath? Because this is the habit that surprises people the most. Not because it's rare, but because it feels so right. And if you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people because awareness is where change begins. But knowing these habits alone still isn't the full picture, because sometimes it's not just what you combine, but how often you repeat it, that ultimately determines the outcome. Take a moment and think about this. Your kidneys have been working for you every single minute of your life, quietly, consistently, without ever asking for attention. They don't complain, they don't send clear warnings, and by the time they do, it often means they've already been under pressure for a long time. But the powerful part is this: you are not powerless here. You don't need to change everything overnight. Sometimes protecting your health comes down to small, intentional adjustments. Giving your body time between foods, staying properly hydrated, and becoming just a little more aware of the habits you repeat every day. If anything you heard today felt familiar, if you saw a piece of your own routine in these examples, then don't ignore that feeling. Save this video not because it's just another piece of content, but because it might be something you or someone you care about needs to remember at the right moment. And if you want more simple, practical, medically grounded insights to help you protect your kidneys and take control of your health, consider subscribing to the channel. I share this information because I've seen what happens when people don't hear it in time, and I want you to have that chance before it's too late. Because the truth is, your future health isn't decided in a hospital. It's shaped quietly every day in the choices you make at home. And no matter where you are right now, it is not too late. Your body is still listening. Your kidneys are still responding. And with the right understanding, you can move forward feeling lighter, stronger, and in control again.